Shalom Aleichem. My name is Rabbi Joey, and you've reached the Yoke of Messiah YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us for our Midrash this week. It is for Parsha Vayigash. It is the week after Hanukkah has ended, and we are very glad to have you here with us. Let's start with the blessing over the reading of the Torah. Please join in where you feel like you know where to go. Barku Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Havarak Le'elam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakarbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Bless the Lord who is to be blessed.
Bless the Lord who is to be blessed forever and ever.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who chose us from all peoples and gave to us your Torah. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah. And I'm going to leave the flub in there for encouragement to those who are studying and learning their liturgy. Even people have been doing it their whole life mess it up sometimes, so don't feel bad about it. Now, this Parsha starts in the middle of a chapter. It is in the middle of the story of Joseph and his brothers when they come to Egypt. It's Genesis chapter 44, verse 18 through 30. Would anybody like to read Aliyah 1?
I can.
I heard of Benjamin first. We'll go with Sanders second.
Does that mean I win? I don't.
Yeah,
You won.
Okay.
You said it first, so we're going with first come, first serve.
Because when you said she reads it second, I was like, well, she can just go, you can just read it one time. She can read it. Instead of
Right.
reading it again.
If we loop back around, she'll read it the next time.
Excuse me. Then Judah approached him and said, please, my lord, let now your servant speak something into my lord's ears, and let not your wrath be kindled against your servant, for you are like Pharaoh. My lord asked his servant, saying, Have you a father or a brother? And we said to my lord, we have an old father and a young child of his old age. And his brother is dead, and he is left alone of his mother, and his father loves him. And you said to your servants, bring him down to me. I will set my eyes upon him. And we said to my lord, the boy cannot leave his father, for if he leaves his father, he will die. And you said to your servants, if your youngest brother does not come down with you, you will not see my face again. And it came to pass, when we went up to your servant, my father, and we told him the words of my lord, that our father said, go back and buy us a little food. But we said, we cannot go down, only if our youngest brother is with us, will we go down, for we cannot see the man's face if our youngest brother is not with us. And your servant, my father, said to us, you know that my wife bore me 2 children. The one went away from me, and I said, he has surely been torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since. Now if you take this one too away from me, and misfortune befalls him, you will bring down my hoary head in misery to the grave. And now, when I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, since his soul is attached to the boy's soul, the boy's soul. Sorry.
And I was going to take a moment and look up that word. I meant to do that earlier today. Let's go. I'm going to use Blue Letter Bible. The the hoary head word, because he says that in the next verse as well, or the next Aliyah 2.
I have gray hair.
Let's see. That's probably all it means. Let's see. What is that? 44:29. Anybody else have any other versions of that? to know what it might mean? Yeah.
I've always heard it was the gray and disheveled, implying very old and coarse, when one is very old and they're no longer supple and in body and mind. And don't be pointing at me. I should go put on my lovely thing that Sherry has.
So the word in Hebrew is Shiva, and it almost makes me think sitting Shiva. That may not be the same meaning here, maybe not. Don't think so. But I do know from being married to a hairdresser that not only do our hairs, lose color over time, it actually becomes more coarse, the hair
That's right.
itself.
That's right.
So that it seems like it feels like it's more than just gray. It feels like it's a reference to just being aged.
Right. Very, very much so.
You mentioned how it connected with, it sounded like Shiva.
Mm.
And Rashi's comment on that verse where it says, "You will bring down my hoary head in misery."
Mhm.
It says, "Now that he is with me, I comfort myself over the loss of his mother and over the loss of his brother. But if this one too dies, it will seem to me as if the three of them died in one day."
Mm.
So to me, it does sound like, mourning as well.
Right.
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 I like it.
Okay.
Well, does anybody have any thoughts about Alia 1 other than this coarse, gray haired old man being sad? Potentially. Seems fairly straightforward, unless I'm missing something.
I think it was the last time, I had not remembered that he says this, but I assumed that he was still under the impression that his boy was, killed by some kind of wild animal or whatever, since the plot by the older brothers. But this one basically confirms it. He says in 28 when he's talking about, the youngest one being torn to pieces.
Right. So they've kept that story up all this time. They say that it's you should always tell the truth because it's hard. Once you start lying, it's hard to keep your lies straight. But they have kept. I think we're going to find out later that Joseph is 30 here in this moment. And so for 13 years, they have kept that particular part of the story straight.
I guess I just assumed they just kept their mouth shut, let the dad just believe what he believed, and they didn't add or take away to it.
Yeah, they let him make his assumption when they saw his coat. And they just let, well, this is what he assumes. And so that's,
Yeah,
Right.
I would have exploded a long time ago for
Be
keeping that quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, hear what people have said, don't you?
Huh?
What?
Go at your baby.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you can cut that out.
Oh no. That's Rabbi Glenn Wilson for you, everybody, and we'll be handing out his email later if you want to.
I have his phone number.
If I give that out, he'll change it and not give it to me. So
True. But his wife will give it to me and I'll give it to you.
I'm the weakest link.
all right. So do we want to move on to Alia 2, which is in
Yes.
chapter 44? If we can get Mrs. Sanders to read that for us, please.
When he sees that the boy When he sees that the boy isn't with us, he will die, and your servants will bring the gray hair of your servant our father down to Sheol with grief. For your servant himself guaranteed his safety. I said, if I fail to bring him to you, then I will bear the blame before my father forever. Therefore, I beg you, let your servant stay as a slave to my lord instead of the boy, and let the boy go up with his brothers. For how can I go up to my father if the boy isn't with me? I couldn't bear to see my father so overwhelmed by anguish. At least Joseph could no longer control his feelings in front of his attendants and cried, get everybody away from me. So no one else was with him when Joseph revealed to his brothers who he was. He wept aloud, and the Egyptians heard, and Pharaoh's household heard. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is it true that my father is still alive? His brothers couldn't answer him. They were so dumbfounded at seeing him. Joseph said to his brothers, please come closer. And they came closer. He said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But don't be sad that you sold me into slavery here or angry at yourselves, because it was God who sent me ahead of you to preserve life. The famine has been over the land for the last 2 years, and for yet another 5 years there will be neither plowing nor harvest. God sent me ahead of you to ensure that you will have descendants on earth and to save your lives in a great deliverance.
That is, and that to me, that's part of why we consider Joseph so great. That he, in the throes of his servitude, though he is elevated very high, still a servant. Um, that he will be able to see it with that perspective, that it was God's will to send him ahead, et cetera, et cetera. Um, I try to see what difficulties or seeming difficulties I experience is what is God trying to teach me through it, et cetera. And that has served me well in my life. Now, I've also heard people say that that can be taken to an extreme to where, people are, there are factions inside Judaism that say that you should thank God for everything, even if it's something seemingly horrible. Um, and I've heard the debates back and forth as to whether or not it's appropriate to do such a thing, or to even that it's almost like you're thanking God for doing a thing when really He didn't have anything to do with that horrible thing that happened. By giving Him praise, you're giving Him credit, and it's a slippery slope there. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Because I think about that all the time.
Sure.
I guess I have a slight input on that. I had something bad happen to me as a child, and I didn't process it very well. But becoming a mother and then having my oldest experience something very similar, I began to appreciate, so to say, that I went through that, because now I was able to help him and understand. So, and I caught the red flags and everything. So even though he didn't speak out, I was observing the exact same things I experienced, and that helped me. And even when I was a social worker, it helped me connect to my ladies whenever they went through certain things, because I had been through it. I understand more than just a word situation or something you learn in class. It was a personal connection. So
Right.
it helped. So I guess that's one benefit you can take from bad things if you can get past it.
Right.
Not saying everybody can get past these things, but if you can, it can help somebody at some point.
So in other words, you didn't revel in what you were going through. It was almost like a daily, help me God, help me God, help me God, help me God, to get through all of this. And there was no revel in it, and there was no joy in it, but you just continued turning over to God. And when that came to a closure, what you had learned from the process was of great use. However,
Yes.
however, you've never looked back at the thing and said, "Oh gosh, I was so glad that
Oh
you
no,
can't."
there was never any joy that, oh,
No,
I'm thankful I
no,
went through it. No, but once you got through it and processed it, got the closure, like you said, which there were a few things that took me probably 15 years to get the
yeah,
closure, you know,
right,
but once I got it and then something happened, or maybe it could be multiple things that happened, and I was able to use that bad thing
that's right,
to
Right.
help somebody. That's when I became thankful. I wasn't thankful at the time,
right,
it was thankful after the
right.
fact.
Right.
But you have to process it. If you can't handle your stuff, you're not going to be able to help the person. So that's why I think anybody who has bad things, because we all
Right,
experience bad stuff, but when
right,
it's very deep trauma,
right.
you can get through that. You are going
Exactly.
to help somebody tremendously. And to me, the most important thing, yeah, I loved helping my ladies, but to help my son,
Right.
that was like a game changer to me, you know, that was like the best thing in the world,
That's right.
Right.
to help your
That's
child
right.
through it.
That's awesome.
It comes a full circle. And I'm with you. I'm with you, Sherry, because Joey is highlighting something that I think is very important, because I've had people in religious circles say, "Oh, just be very joyful," and I'm thinking, no, no, but be joyful that as it is bleak at this moment, God sees this, he understands what I'm going through, and he alone, if it's just him alone today, will carry me through.
Right.
And you learn something from that, but you don't want to go through that again. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know.
Not something to seek out, but but if given to God, God can use it. And I guess that is that's the what's the word? It's that dividing line there.
Condition.
Not to get semantical about it, but like you shouldn't seek bad things out, but when bad things happen, not necessarily thanking God that a bad thing happened, but thanking God that you know that he'll be with you through the situation
Exactly.
and be able to use it for you, for a faith testimony, for your own strengthening and for other to help others in the future, you know, from what things you've struggled, you know, or experienced. So that's what I'm always find myself somewhere in the middle of that argument back and forth when I hear people say that. And I knew you guys would have better ideas, you know, to give me balance in that.
Well, probably Joseph would have said, "I see it full circle now. Because of all of this, I was able to come ahead of the process and help to save my family." But
Right.
I even think he would probably would not want to repeat that again. You know,
Right.
I think Ben was going to say something.
No, when Joey was searching for a word, I was trying to guess the word he was searching for
I
when
think
he was trying to link the difference between reveling in the, I guess, the misery, and just versus recognizing the sovereignty of our Father
Right.
in those situations. And that's the condition. That was the word I came up with.
Yeah.
right. No, I'm with you. I like it. So we see that, you know, just like the scriptures say, though something be meant for evil, God can use it for our good. And so, did anybody else have any thoughts about Aliyah 2 or before we move on to Aliyah 3? I will take that as a no. Let's see. Aliyah 3, 45:8. Would anybody like to read that?
I'll take it.
All right.
And now you did not send me here, but God, and he made me a father to Pharaoh, a lord over all his household, and a ruler over the entire land of Egypt. Hasten and go up to my father and say to him, so said your son Joseph, God has made me a lord over all the Egyptians. Come down to me, do not tarry. And you shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near to me, you and your children and your grandchildren, and your flocks and your cattle, and all that is yours. And I will sustain you there, for there are still 5 years of famine, lest you become impoverished, you and your household, and all that is yours. And behold, your eyes see, as well as the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that it is my mouth speaking to you. And you shall tell my father of all my honor in Egypt and all that you have seen, and you shall hasten and bring my father down here. And he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. And afterwards his brothers spoke with him. And the voice was heard in Pharaoh's house saying, Joseph's brothers have come. And it pleased Pharaoh and his servants. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, tell your brothers, do this, load up your beasts and go, enter the land of Canaan. And take your father and your households and come to me, and I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you'll eat the fat of the land. And you, Joseph, have been commanded to tell them, do this. Take yourselves wagons from the land of Egypt for your young children and your wives, and you shall carry your father and come. And let your eye not be concerned about your utensils, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours. And the sons of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them wagons by Pharaoh's orders, and gave them provisions for the way. He gave them all, to each one, several changes of clothes, and to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of clothes. And to his father he sent the following: 10 he-donkeys carrying of the best of Egypt, and 10 she-donkeys carrying grain, bread, and other food for his father for the way. And he sent off his brothers, and they went, and he said to them, do not quarrel on the way. So they went up from Egypt, and they came to the land of Canaan, to their father Jacob. And they told him, saying, Joseph is still alive. And they told him that he ruled over the entire land of Egypt. And his heart changed, for he did not believe them. And they told him all of Joseph's words that he had said to them. And he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him, and the spirit of their father Jacob was revived.
Amazing.
Can't imagine.
Pharaoh was very generous here, wasn't he?
He
Very.
was. And
Giving
the
them
idea that
back.
did he not want to, did his dad not want to ask, and did they not ever, I can't remember, did they ever tell the father what actually happened, or they just say, oh, it was just, I was taken captive and sold into slavery, and they don't know? I can't remember, so no spoilers here. Let's see.
Spoil everything.
Welcome, Noah.
Welcome, buddy.
Oh crap.
But
Benjamin, oh,
yeah. Nice tear wrap, Sanders. I like it.
So now in this, we are in Aliyah 3, which is, of course, 45, verse 8. Let's see.
And it's, Pharaoh, this family was getting the best that Egypt had to offer.
Right.
Yeah.
They were going to live off the fat of the land, it says. And he got all these clothes and money, and I was wondering, as we were reading through here, did they know that it was going to be 7 years, or did only Joseph know it? I mean, it's 2 years into the famine, so
when he
did they know?
when he foretold the dreams to the Pharaoh, he said 7 years good, 7 years bad.
Yeah, I know, but did everybody else know it?
Ooh, that I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be a hard sell to get people to give you their stuffs for storage instead of allowing them to sell it. It'd be a hard sell if you didn't tell them, like, hey, bad times are coming.
Yeah.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
You could. He is a king, god, emperor type person, the Pharaoh is. So if he says do it, I don't know that they have much recourse, but,
Mm-hmm.
the battle for hearts and minds, as it were.
Well, 2
I-
years in, they were needing help for sure.
right. Not to get off on a rabbi trail, but I did see in there, and I've been wondering about it, where it says, take no regard for your utensils. And so I looked that up, and it is the Hebrew word kali. Could also be in the plural kelakim. And that is, some of these don't make sense to me as to why it would be referenced, but then one does seem sensible to me. It's translated as vessel 166 times, instrument 39 times, weapon 21 times, jewels 21 times, armor bearer, stuff, things, armor, furniture. Furniture, it's translated 7 times. And I was just thinking, like, that's the only reason I don't move sometimes, is because I don't want to move my stuff again. I'll just stay here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the best of both worlds. They're getting to come on, and they're not having to carry their junk with them. They're heavy stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes more sense than knives and forks. Don't worry about your knives and
Yes.
forks. You know, we got
Yeah.
plenty of those here.
Or
I
your
won't say how many times we've moved, but whenever we move, we're like, oh, we can get a new couch, a new
Right.
table and chairs. We can get those easy. Let's just
Right.
leave it.
Yeah, I hate moving. I hate it. So when I saw furniture, that really spoke to my heart. I'm like, oh, this is a good thing, because I thought we were going to have to tote the love seat from Canaan to Egypt.
Yeah.
Right.
So, anyways, excuse me, I should have muted my microphone. All right. So, and just imagine this always strikes me, not to say that the children of Israel and Israel himself were not wealthy. Clearly, they had monies, and God has been blessing them all this time with flocks and herds and cattle and all this stuff. But I always think, how ornate were these wagons that the Pharaoh sent to move their stuff in, and didn't it look like the Clampets going to Maui? You know, you got a bunch of herdsmen riding on these Ben-Hur gold trimmed with all the finest, animals pulling them of Egypt. I don't know. I just always thought, it seems like that's going to be weird. Like, people are like, where are they going, and where do they get the money for this new car?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Let's see.
I noticed in verse 14 when it talked about he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. It made me think of when Joseph, well, let's see, wait a minute. Esau and Jacob met,
Right.
and they had all their wives and everything, and Jacob was scared.
Right.
But then when they met together, it talks about them falling on each other's neck.
Right.
And I've heard it, I've heard both ways. Well, they were sincerely, emotionally, affectionate. But then I've heard people say, well, that means that they were like having a lot of animosity. But looking at this scripture, to me, it's so similar that I would think that previous scripture about Esau and Jacob would be an affectionate,
Right.
falling on each other's neck and weeping,
Did anybody else find it weird that he tells them don't quarrel along the way in 24? I almost feel like it's because he knows they're going to have to start building a backstory for this thing they're about to tell their dad.
Yep.
Yeah.
And notice, smart guy that Joseph is, doesn't say don't build a backstory. He says don't quarrel about it. Like, come up with a story and agree on it. Do not argue. Because the first thing that's going to happen is Reuben's going to be like, I didn't want to put him in the ditch anyway. They wanted to kill him. I was trying not to. I tried to rescue him after they went to bed, but they already sold him into slavery. Reuben's just going to be like, I would be. I'd be throwing the flag, hey, this wasn't my idea,
Yeah.
except that he carried on the farce that Joseph was killed. So then he'd have to admit, some culpability there.
Right. At least tacit lying or tacit approval, as it were. What do they call it?
Because otherwise they could just all be shocked and about, oh, he's alive? What?
Yeah, but he also knows the capabilities of his brothers.
Yeah. And
What
they're
they can
start
do.
fighting.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew.
So all these angles and all this pearl clutching that could be going on this trip, they got, what did we say? It was like a couple weeks to make this journey, wasn't it? Or like a week or two to make this journey. That's plenty of time for things to break down.
Mhm.
So he tells them, hey, I feel like he's almost saying, don't quarrel about it. Look, we're going to cover this up. We're not going to out you to dad,
Right.
Mhm.
So.
But that kind of makes me think of the way that we are today, because we'll kill our own,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's with words or actions or something. We can turn around and say some of the ugliest things. I heard somebody say last year, they said, well, I went to a Hanukkah party. I said, oh, well, that was nice. And then she said, and they served ham. And so that was a criticism of this other group.
Right.
And I thought, it just has rung with me for almost a year now. I'm thinking, are believers
So perfect.
just the world's worst about killing our own, about condemning our own, as opposed to, and it's supposed to be a family, like these brothers were family, and they were arguing on the way back home.
Right.
Well, that's who we argue the best with,
Mm-hmm.
is our brothers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there you are.
Here I am, and I'm somebody that lives with their brother, and we know the line not to cross.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Because OMG, just saying.
Yeah.
I'm a better shot. It just, we know what our capabilities are, and we know we need not do some things. So,
Right.
and yeah, you put me in a wagon for however many weeks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I got this whole lie behind me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I got to go tell my father that his son, oh no, he's not dead, he's alive.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Hey, and something else I've never thought about too is Benjamin. This is the first he's heard of this story, probably. He didn't.
Right.
He
Yeah,
thinks
he was in the dark
guy's
too, I'm
dead.
sure.
All of a sudden, he pops up and he's alive and he's saving his family. And
Right.
he's probably looking at his older brothers, going, "What? What? I can't believe anything you say now."
Right.
Never thought about his angle.
Well, isn't that another facet to forgiveness? Right then and there,
Yeah.
he could have made them all pay for it,
Yes.
Right.
but
He could have thought
pardoned
of
it. He pardoned, said, "Don't quarrel. Everything is good now, and what you meant
Right.
for harm, God meant for good." And so there's something, even Scripture says, when your enemy falls, do not revel in
Right.
that. Do not.
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
You're
There's a
right.
lot of teaching, good teaching in this scripture. Mm-hmm.
I like it. And we're back. Let's see here. Still in Aliyah 3. Let's see. Okay, not quarreling. And they tell him Joseph is still alive. All right. Would anybody like to read Aliyah 4? Did you say so?
Me.
I think Bridget
Okay.
wants to read that.
All right, let's do it to it. Mountain Dew.
Okay.
What
Start.
verse does that start in?
It's the last verse of chapter 45. It's verse 28, at least the way that we are counting it.
Okay.
And Israel said, enough, my son Joseph is still alive, and I will go and see him before I die. Genesis 6:46. And Israel and all that was his set out and came to Beersheba, and he slaughtered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And God said to Israel in visions of the night, and he said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here I am. And he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid of going down to Egypt, for there I will make you a great nation. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up. And Joseph will place his hands on your eyes. And Jacob arose from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried their father Jacob and their young children and their wives in the wagons Pharaoh had sent to carry him. And they took their livestock and their possessions that they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and they came to Egypt, Jacob and all his descendants with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his descendants he brought with him to Egypt.
Excuse me. I like it. So, like you pointed out last week, I think it was Bridget pointed out last week, that God said to Israel, Jacob, Jacob, and he tells him not to be fearful and to go down, etc., to Egypt. And it makes me wonder, well, was maybe Jacob living beneath his calling at that moment? And that's why it was called Jacob, that he was in his flesh and that he was not operating in faith or whatever. But this is a big deal. I would also be very nervous, and and plus you're leaving the land that you were promised.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's like, well, if we don't, this is the ancient world. If we're not doing squatters' rights, then we're
Mhm.
gonna have somewhere to come back to.
Mhm. Right. And to take all his family
Mm.
down to Egypt, I mean, it's not where they would want to go.
Right.
And
It's pretty interesting in a famine to slaughter sacrifices,
Yeah, it is.
yeah.
right? I mean, everything's on ration. I find that interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
But if that was the cost of doing business, to make sure you were going to hear from Hashem,
Right.
sometimes you
No,
gotta.
it was he just honored God. I think God liked it. And I'm just saying,
Right.
well, it's kind of like the disciples saying when Yeshua's the lady that came in and broke the incredibly expensive ointment and put it over his feet and anointed him. And they said, we could have sold that for money to feed these poor people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Same kind of thing.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Time and place.
Yeah.
And that's what my uncle always says, Tommy. He says it's about having a close enough relationship with God that instead of trying to canvas the whole world with your message and trying to talk to every single person that you come across and trying to give everything you have away to every person that you meet, that if you have a close relationship with Hashem, that he will speak to you and show you where you fit in this situation, or if you don't fit in at all, and what your role is to do here, and that sort of thing. So instead of running around like a crazy person trying to be everything to everybody, be focused on Hashem. And when he calls you to action, it will be clear to you, and you will know what to do at that time. Just like with Mashiach, he passed the guy that Peter healed right after Mashiach's ascension. He passed that guy probably every day on his way to the temple, the guy that was out begging. And then it was Peter, I think, that actually like laid hands on the guy and healed the guy. So the Messiah, perfectly capable of doing all of this, but he squirreled away time to be with the Father so that he'd know exactly what he was supposed to do exactly at the right time, and that it wasn't time for him to have done these things, and he was leaving other things. And he even says the greater things than I've done that you will do. So I'm still waiting to see this happen. So, but
Back
this
to
is what
Glenn's
Rashid
point.
says. Sorry.
Back to Glenn's point about the sacrifices during the famine, though. It reminds me of I hear people. I had a friend when I was younger who always tithed, and like he was the first person that ever talked to me about tithing my money. He's like, I'm not saying it's going to make you rich, or I'm not saying it's going to solve all your problems, but like his mom gave him $20, he put $2 away in a little envelope on his dresser, and then at a time he'd take it and give it. And he did that whether it was, whether he had a lot, whether we had money to go eat at Taco Bell or not, he went and, put his money in the thing and did that. And so when I started working and doing that, I started tithing. And I can't tell you how many people I've heard say, well, as soon as we get some things straightened out, as soon as we have enough to do it, it's like, I think you got the cart on the wrong side of the horse. With that kind of thinking, and so you really see it tough right here with these guys doing their sacrifices that they had been commanded to do or felt led to do, even though it was famine. That's a huge, I think that's a huge statement for us to follow with,
Right.
Absolutely. And that, depending on who you're giving, or like where you're giving your monies to, the idea that the person on the other end of that, or the group on the other end of that gift, the tithe or whatever, may need it much more than you needed at that moment. So trying to like work out everything so that you can start to do the thing. No, just go for it, whether it be a charity or tithing or taking care of your neighbor or whatever else. Just start, and those I've found that will fall in all those other things will fall into place.
Right.
Can we stop and say hello to Christelia?
Hey, Miss Crystal, thank you for being with us tonight.
Sorry, I'm late.
Hey, it's quite all right.
I'm at work, so I just now got to the point where I can join in.
Well, you're just about on time for the last 2 weeks, so technically, doing good. Well, we are in Parsha Vayigash. I'm sure you're aware. We are in Aliyah 5. If anybody had anything else to say about Aliyah 4, we're all ears. Otherwise, we can go ahead and move to 5.
I did want to ask, does anyone know what Joseph placing his hand on your eyes means?
No idea. Let's see what Rashi says.
Where is that?
Well, he didn't say nothing. He doesn't know either.
He didn't say anything about it. Honestly,
Maybe that's a term of
It's probably an idiom.
an idiom. Okay.
it probably is, and I skipped right over it and didn't even notice it in my studying this week. And when it was read just now, this is completely has nothing to do with the subject matter, but
Are
it
you
made me
talking
think of how the Italian families, or I think it's Italian, maybe it's a Greek. There's certain families that they place like coins on the eyes of the dead or whatever. Like that. I know that is not what we're referring to here, but that's the first thing that came to my mind.
Oh,
sent him to rest, basically.
oh, okay. Now that makes sense. That makes sense.
Maybe the thing when the person dies and they close their eyes.
And that happens when is Joseph the one who actually brings him back, or is it later than Joseph? Is it one of Joseph's descendants? I can't remember.
That brings Jacob Israel back.
Yeah.
This is at Joseph's command that everybody's coming back right now, unless I'm mistaken.
No, but you're talking about verse 4, right, Glenn, where he says,
Yes.
don't be afraid to go down to Egypt, but I will also bring you back here again after Joseph has closed your eyes. So it's Joseph that brings him back as well.
They do carry his body back.
Right.
Because that's a question I was going to ask momentarily. When his father passes, there's big mourning, and they take him back, and they sorry, I was going to mute that. And there's big mourning, and they bury him. And I kind of always thought, well, maybe this should have been the time everybody went back to Israel or back to Canaan. Maybe we should not have gone back to Egypt at this time. But obviously, God had other plans. Who am I to know? But
I think actually it is exactly what y'all have said. He's just saying, "Don't be afraid, because I'm going to be with you when you go, and I'll also bring you back up, and your own son, your beloved son, will close your eyes in death." In other words, you'll be, this will have a wonderful ending for you. I think this was a comfort scenario,
right.
The son you never thought you would see again will be the last thing you see.
Exactly.
Very
Mhm.
cool. Very
Okay.
well put, Benjamin. We can always count on you.
Well, I let him into it.
Now, boys,
Points. Everybody gets points.
that's good.
Bonsoir.
Let's see. All right. Well, it looks like they are headed down to the big city. So let's see what happens in Aliyah 5.
I'll read it because it's got all that stuff in it.
Okay.
All right, Genesis chapter 46, verse 8. And these are the names of the children of Israel who were coming back to Egypt. Jacob and his sons, Jacob's firstborn was Reuben. And the sons of Reuben were Hanok and Palu, Hezron and Carmi. And the sons of Simeon were Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, and Zohar. And Saul, the son of the Canaanites. And the sons of Levi were Gershon, Kehath, and Merari. And the sons of Judah were Er, Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. Now Er and Onan had died in the land of Canaan, and the sons of Perez were Herzon and Hamul. And the sons of Issachar were Tola, Puva, Eob, and Shimron. And the sons of Zebulun were Sered, Elon, and Jalil. And the sons of Leah that she bore to Jacob in Padan Aram, and Dinah, his daughter. And all the souls of the sons and daughters were 33. And the sons of Gad were Ziphion, Hagi, Shuni, and Ezban, Eri, Arodi, and Erili. And the sons of Asher were Imnah, Ishvi, and Bria. That's pretty, Bria. And Sarah, their sister. And the sons of Bria were Heber and Malchiel. These are the sons of Zilpah, who Laban gave to his daughter Leah, and she bore these to Jacob, 16 souls. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, were Joseph and Benjamin. And to Joseph were born in the land of Egypt, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, the governor of On, bore to him Manasseh and Ephraim. And the sons of Benjamin were Bela, Becher, Ashbo, Kera, Naaman, Ehi, and Rosh, Hupim, and Ard. Wow. These are the sons of Rachel who were born to Jacob. All the souls were 14. And the sons of Dan, Hushim. And the sons of Naphtali were Jaziel, Guni, Zahir, and Shelim. These are the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Rachel, and she bore these to Jacob. All the souls were 7. All the souls coming to Egypt with Jacob, those descended from him, excluding the wives of Jacob's sons, all the souls were 36. And Joseph's sons who were born to him in Egypt, 2 souls, all the souls of the house of Jacob who came to Egypt were 70.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Tremendous job.
If I didn't know Hebrew, I could never do that.
It's a lot of hard words.
So they enter 70 peoples, and in 400-ish years, what is it they're going to leave? I can't even remember how many it's supposed to be. Hmm?
A great nation, as he was promised to become.
Great nation.
A whole ton. Lots and lots.
Lots.
All right. Now that we've gotten through the tough part, would anybody like to read Aliyah 6? Unless somebody had something they would like to add about Aliyah 5.
I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole.
I will read 6 unless Noah, you are about to say it.
I can't either way. It doesn't matter.
I'll do it. All right. Genesis chapter 46, verse 28. He sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to direct him to Goshen. And they came to the land of Goshen. And Joseph harnessed his chariot and went up to meet Israel his father to Goshen. And he appeared to him, and he fell on his neck, and he wept on his neck for a long time. And Israel said to Joseph, I will die this time, since I have seen your face, that you are still alive. Joseph said to his brothers and his father's household, I will go up and tell Pharaoh, and I will say to him, my brothers and my father's households who were in the land of Canaan have come to me. The men are shepherds, for they were always owners of livestock, and their flocks and their cattle, and all they have that have brought. And if it comes to pass that Pharaoh calls you and asks, what is your occupation? You shall say, your servants have been owners of livestock from our youth until now, both we and our ancestors, so that you may dwell in the land of Goshen, because all shepherds are abhorrent to Egyptians. Genesis chapter 47. Joseph came and told Pharaoh, and he said, my father and my brothers and their livestock and their cattle and all that is theirs have come from the land of Canaan, and behold, they are in the land of Goshen. And from among his brothers he took 5 men and presented them before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to his brothers, what is your occupation? And they said to Pharaoh, your servants are shepherds, both we and our forefathers. And they said to Pharaoh, we have come to sojourn in the land, for your servants' flocks have no pasture, for the famine is severe in the land of Goshen. Now please let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, saying, your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is open before you. In the best of the land settle your father and your brothers. Let them dwell in the land of Goshen. And if you know that there are capable men among them, make them livestock officers over what is mine. So Joseph brought his father Jacob and stood him before Pharaoh, and Jacob greeted Pharaoh. How auspicious is this meeting?
Mhm.
And Pharaoh said to Jacob, how many are the days of the years of your life? And Jacob said to Pharaoh, the days of the years of my sojournings are 130 years. The days of the years of my life have been few and miserable, and they have not reached the days of the years of the lives of my forefathers and the days of their sojournings. So Jacob blessed Pharaoh and left Pharaoh's presence. I love that. I always see Ben Stiller's dad in that moment. They have been short and miserable. And I'm not living as long as the rest of my family before me. Gotta respect a brother for holding true to his ways, though. He is going to complain about dying all the days of his life at every turn, including to the most powerful person on earth. It's almost like he's like, I've complained about dying to everybody. And since you're the boss of all the earth, I'm going to tell you too. Maybe somebody can do something about this. So this is just me. My earthly dad, the guy at least to my that I'm pointing at right here, I don't know if that's the way it'll come out, that guy has always bathed every situation regarding my life that we've interacted about, whether it be jobs or marriages or home purchases or car purchases or whatever else. Every big thing in my life has been bathed in prayer from probably before the day I was born by this gentleman, and that's totally good and appropriate. But he has also seen me through some situations where even on a regular basis, he will advise me that, hey, we were all prayed up. We've done all that we're supposed to do about this thing. God's going to show up and show out and do his thing. But let's consider how we should say it. Or what's our story going to be? Never not true, but you want to make sure you put the right emphasis on the correct syllable, when you're telling a story. And so him telling his brothers, I know you're shepherds, don't get fancy, tell them you're shepherds. And that everybody from before you, that you're from shepherds, and that's all we know. We're just shepherds, and that's it. So you don't get hung up in doing something that is not your bailiwick, that you don't have any business doing. Don't get put in the city because you might be good with money or whatever. You need to be shepherds and stay in Goshen. And also, I love the fact that he only takes 5 men. It doesn't even say it's 5 brothers. He just took like the 5 people who he knew that could follow instruction and say that we are shepherds and this is it.
Mhm.
So yes, we should bathe every situation in prayer. Yes, we should go to God. Yes, we should ask our elders to pray for us and intercede and be with our friends and family and ask them to try and move heaven and earth and be with the Father in regards to big things going on in our lives. But it is also very important how you say a thing, because,
Mhm.
you have to remember that you're not talking to God when you're talking to that potential employer. That you should not tell a false truth, but that you should tell the best truth that you have.
Exactly.
So, anyways, this is one of the parshas. This is one of the parts of the scriptures where I'm just like, this is being a wise person, a good and smart man, a good father to his wretched brothers, let's be honest, in regards to him. So, anyways, hopefully that doesn't sound like trickery to anybody else, but that's been a
Well, it's
thing that's
not
really
true.
been helpful in my life, is having a dad, not only who pray for me, not only who be there with me in thick and thin, but also help me to come up with the right words to say.
Mhm.
Well, there's also something I think to be said there too about staying in your lane. You know,
That's right.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's right.
it's
Yes.
because we're all gifted differently.
Right.
So do that thing. Do that thing well. I mean, sometimes wording is important though. You need
Right.
to, maybe there are times when you need to talk it up a little more than others.
It's like when Herod said, kill the firstborn, but do it gently.
Right.
Not.
Well, that was funny on the show. I saw it. They were laughing.
I'm laughing at you.
Crystal, thank you.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing near you.
Well, that's
But God says, but isn't that part of something that was said in the Proverbs? A gentle word will do this. I mean,
Yeah.
if you've worked so hard to put everything behind what you are doing, then blow it
Right.
with your words. In other words, if you're talking to somebody, you want them to hear you, truly hear you. And if you use the wrong words, that wall goes up and they will not hear you. They may say, thank you for your advice, but if you really want to be heard and understood, the best thing you can do is use the right wording,
And the right tone. It never
right
really.
tone.
Yeah, I mean, you can yell at someone that you love them. It doesn't really come across that way though.
I love you.
and the fact that he was going to put them in the best place,
Right.
choicest place, and he didn't want them to botch that up. If someone would say, well, we could live in the city if you'd like for us to, and then maybe have to split them up or something. But no, they were getting the choices. And then they ended up being overseers of Egyptian flocks.
Right.
I'd never seen that before, that they ended up being.
Yeah, they ended up overseeing Pharaoh's cattle.
Yeah.
Well, plus they have that lesson that the forefathers told about, remember Lot was right in the middle of the
Right.
city and the richness of all of it. And his life was vexed and vexed and vexed. And the thought is get those people there, get them off to themselves where they can be who they are. And, you're still partaking of the fat of the land, but you're not in the middle of all that idolatry.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's also, this should be a lesson to us to do what we're good at. If
Yeah.
I'm not good at something, I shouldn't try to do that. I mean, God would make me able to do whatever needed to be done in the moment He needs it done, if I'm the only person to do it. But I mean, really, we all think we all have to, go to a foreign country and be a missionary, or some people. That's the way I always thought. Oh, I wouldn't do anything for the Lord unless I was a missionary and starving in a hut somewhere.
Right.
But that's not true. Do what you do best, and because that's a needed part. If we're so busy trying to do something that we feel like we need to do, but we're not called to do, then it's not usually going to work out very good. That's the way I've seen it happen to me, and you're miserable the whole time.
Well, I
So
can
they-
say for sure, I spent my 20s trying to do what I wanted to do, not necessarily what I was good at doing. And then by the time I got to my 30s, I realized like it's easier to do the thing that you're good at. The opportunity is being presented to you instead of trying to constantly do something else.
Mhm,
You know,
mhm.
um,
Yeah.
If we're smart, we'll all come to that conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and to do what you can do with a good spirit and do it well, doesn't that mean you're a success?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
right? I mean, those people that are behind the scenes that do wonderful things that allow people who are out front to sail through. Well,
Yeah.
none of that would happen if the person behind the scenes didn't, you got to build that foundation somehow. And
Right.
I think that everybody matters, but from God's standpoint, He says that part that you don't see somebody doing, that person behind the scenes, is of great, great worth, even if not more than the person who is being seen. So God has a way of making sure that we actually go back to give honor to the one that you never see.
Right.
Mhm, mhm.
well, is not hospitality a spiritual gift?
Right.
I always think of that as being like, well, the person that is an administrator, a person that, waits the table, busses the table, the person that cleans the room after the person has left the hotel or whatever. But I mean, if it weren't for those people, everything would fall apart.
Mhm.
Nobody could do anything. They are literally the grease that keeps life running.
Mhm.
The oil keeps the tracks moving.
Mhm. That's right.
Offensive lineman, so to speak.
There you go.
Yes, linemen that are offensive in that
Oh,
way.
there you go.
Sports.
Yes, sports ball.
But Ben,
I
it was
agree.
important. It was very important.
It's important that he says that because somebody out there watching this is gonna be like, yeah,
And that will bring them into anyway.
yes. Be like, this Taurus stuff, maybe so.
Sounds pretty good now.
You had me at lineman. So let's see. So we go through all this thing. They have these meetings with the Pharaoh, very auspicious. We are at Aliyah 7. Does anybody want to read
Wow.
anything else into Aliyah 6 before we go to Aliyah 7? We are moving at a quite the clip this week.
Who hasn't read? Crystal hasn't read.
Yeah, but Crystal's at work, so I don't know if Crystal.
I can read it. This is Genesis 47, starting at verse 11. Is that right?
That's
46.
Yes,
yes.
No, 47.
Oh, my God, wait.
47, 11 to 27.
Okay. This is from the CJB. Joseph found a place for his father and brothers and gave them property in the land of Egypt, in the best region of the country, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had ordered. Joseph provided food for his father, his brothers, and all his father's household, taking full care of even the youngest. There was no food anywhere, for the famine was very severe, so that both Egypt and Canaan grew weak from hunger. Joseph collected all the money that was in Egypt and Canaan in exchange for the grain they bought, and put the money in Pharaoh's treasury. When all the money in Egypt had been spent, and likewise in Canaan, all the Egyptians approached Joseph and said, "Give us something to eat, even though we have no money. Why should we die before your eyes?" Joseph replied, "Give me your livestock. If you don't have money, I will give you food in exchange for your livestock." So they brought Joseph their livestock, and Joseph gave them food in exchange for the horses, flocks, cattle, and donkeys. All that year, he provided them with food in exchange for all their livestock. When that year was over, they approached Joseph again and said to him, "We won't hide from my lord that all our money is spent, and the herds of livestock belong to my lord. We have nothing left, as my lord can see, but our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for food, and we and our land will be enslaved to Pharaoh. But also give us seed to plant so that we can stay alive and not die, and so that the land won't become barren." So Joseph acquired all the land in Egypt for Pharaoh, as one by one the Egyptians sold their fields, because the famine weighed on them so severely. Thus the land became the property of Pharaoh. As for the people, he reduced them to serfdom, city by city, from one end of Egypt's territory to the other. Only the priest's land did he not acquire, because the priests were entitled to provisions from Pharaoh, and they ate from what Pharaoh provided them. Therefore, they did not sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, "As of today, I have acquired you and your land for Pharaoh. Here is seed for you to sow the land. When harvest time comes, you are to give 20% to Pharaoh. 80% will be yours to keep for seed to plant in the fields, as well as for food and for that of your households and your little ones." They replied, "You have saved our lives. So if it pleases my lord, we will be Pharaoh's slaves." Joseph made it a law for the country of Egypt, valid to this day, that Pharaoh should have 20%. Only the property belonging to the priests did not become Pharaoh's. Israel lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. They acquired possessions in it and were productive, and their numbers multiplied greatly.
I never thought about this till just now, but if he collected the monies and gave it to Pharaoh, and then he collected the cattle and gave it to Pharaoh, but Israel, the people, the Hebrews, were in charge of the cattle of Pharaoh, then that, like, on the good side makes them very, very busy, and on the bad side can mean they're almost overrun with so much to take care of, because now they're taking care of all of Egypt's cattle, which has become the property of Pharaoh. But
But they were making themselves very valuable to Pharaoh.
right,
So
and they're multiplying.
He
so-
wouldn't want to mess with them.
No.
You know.
It would basically tantamount to attacking the storehouses of Pharaoh, like the monetary storehouses of Pharaoh, if you were to go against him. So basically, Joseph has, through this situation, turned all of Egypt into sharecroppers.
Right.
They're farming someone
Yep.
else's land and get to keep the produce with the exception of a fifth.
Right.
And it says it's till this day, that the recording of this Torah, that it was this way. I wonder, does anybody know what the society of Egypt is made up as now? I mean, surely they can't still, like, surely the government doesn't own all of their land. They don't have pharaohs anymore. They have some sort of a government.
I'm not real sure. I know it's not great. For the brief period that I had a little Egyptian roommate when I was in college, he edified me on several things there. Of course, it's a Muslim country.
All right. So, not to say that we should go by this because it's the internet and you never know, but it's not on Wikipedia, so it shouldn't just be something that could be changed willy-nilly. In regards to property laws in Egypt right now, the right to own property is one of the foundational principles of modern democracy and society, but more than 90% of the land of Egypt today is owned by the government, and the lack of options for private land registration has pushed more than 60 people out of the Egyptian economy into informal markets and slums. So it sounds like they still own all but the priest's
Yeah.
land. It sounds like that has not changed. I'm sure, there may have been some back and forth over the course of time, but we are still landing in what has been set up in this reading that we're reading right now.
I wonder if that is a direct result of what was done to the Hebrew slaves.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think, could this be that with all of Joseph and Pharaoh's power that, they've taken all of these people's property and animals and everything, and they own everything now. And it says that we will be your slaves. So, could absolute power corrupt absolutely?
Well, because there came a Pharaoh that did not know Joseph. So, yeah.
Not
And that's the problem with the whole thing. And I think that's why God rectifies that later on with the Hebrew people, with the Israelites, when he, things like the Jubilee year and the
Right.
Shemitah years and all that stuff, where things kind of get set back straight, because you have that time where, Joseph did it out of good intention and out of saving these people's lives. But hey, a generation passes and it's no good anymore.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's true slavery. It's not just serfdom anymore. It's the bad kind of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, I guess the point is, to me, that we have to be even as we're raising our children, we're just a generation away from a corrupted scenario. We have to be very careful in every word we say, everything we do, to preserve God's way. Even if it's not preserved in large measure in our country, it'll be preserved in the households, many households throughout the land. And, one doesn't know what God will do with that, but I think it would be for good, that God would use that. But we can never be lax in obeying and doing what he wants us to do, because it's just around the corner if we don't continue holding up the banner of Torah and salvation through Yeshua.
And learn from these situations.
And learn from these examples.
Well, because we start thinking that our institutions are the right ones, and then we start putting more stock in those things,
Yeah.
which is why he gives, I think about the feasts and the high holy days and the things that he's commanded us to do versus the things that we've instituted, for ourselves.
Right.
That there's a big difference in those things.
Right. There's fellowship, and there's worship, and there's family building within and fellowship, big time fellowship within the Moedim, the wonderful times that God has specified, and there is bankruptcy, and and how people will go into incredible debt on the man-made scenarios, just to make sure that people have an abundance of what they don't even need. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Did we lose the?
Oh, it's a free for all now.
which
Yeah.
goes to show how much power I have over him.
He left it recording. Oh, this should be fun.
Sure did.
I think it's time to bring out Joey's baby pictures.
Oh, I have the bearskin rug. I have it.
I think I've lost my thing.
I'm glad Crystal came. I've been missing her.
Yep.
Mm.
Well, I do, Benjamin. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we don't see anybody.
We love you, but we don't see you. We hear you, but we get to see her. That's an extra plus.
How
That's
are you
right.
doing, Crystal? Can you be answered? Can you? Joey must have you moved.
Joey muted you because you
Joey.
were naughty
Yeah.
earlier.
Because she was.
He's done it. Sorry.
Well, you're good.
Well, he wasn't muting you. There was background noise that was coming through.
Hey, you know sign language, kind of.
Oh,
And if you
and
say
Becky can read
so,
it.
real slow.
Sherry says you can chat.
That's right.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Chat us up.
Oh.
He's back.
He's back. Everybody be good.
All right.
You're probably gonna have to edit that last 5 minutes
I was
out.
gonna say, yeah, I figured about a 5-minute edit to do, so we'll make sure.
Those baby pictures with you and the bearskin rug, those
They went
were
over.
great.
Yeah.
They were
The
great.
bidding got up to 28K.
What? What was that?
We got up to 2018.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want the boys to do it alone, so I should be able to, lead the
There you
minutes.
go.
Okay, all of us on the bearskin rug, boys. Let's go. Well, you
It's
know
kind
what?
of funny that after Joseph told them not to quarrel when he sent them home, we haven't heard squat from them.
No.
Just a lot of yes sirring going on and doing it.
Yeah.
Your servants, my Lord, your servants.
They're walking a wide circle around.
Yes.
what
And Benjamin, I'm sure.
Can you imagine that ride down to Egypt?
oh,
That thing with the whole bloody piece of cloth thing, guys. What was that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was enough for Joseph that they waited their entire lives for that other shoe to drop. He could have just dropped it anytime.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he could have gone and told on them, at least 9 years before the moment that we're reading about right now. As soon as he becomes the second in command of Pharaoh, he can be like, yeah, I need somebody to get the secretary. I need to type up a letter.
Yeah.
Hammer and chisel. Pictures of his brothers throwing them in a ditch.
Yeah. That's interesting. Good story.
Well, and a lot to learn from these stories, especially this one, especially.
Absolutely. The wisdom of serpents and the gentleness of doves and all of that.
Oh, sure.
Well, poor old Jacob, he had 4 wives, or 2 wives and 2 concubines. I don't know however you want to figure it. And he worked all those years for Laban, and he had this issue with his brother, and then he thought his son, his most beloved son, was dead. And he's got some sorrows in his life, that's for sure.
Right. But if you just hang on, Even though it may seem like the wait is eternal, you know, Hashem can bring things back around to the good.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm still just laughing at what he says to Pharaoh in his face-to-face interview with the most powerful person on the planet. My days are short and they're miserable.
Yeah. Ah, yeah.
But I tell you what, this day has not been short, it's been long, but you guys have made it end in a wonderful way for me. And I have certainly not been miserable in this Midrash. How is that for bringing it full
No, it's that
circle?
just as I had
Oh,
taught you,
sir.
and it was beautiful.
Yes.
You chose your words correctly, little grasshopper.
Well, thank you all again so much for being here. Special thanks to Miss Crystal for joining us. We are moving our start time to 7:30 moving forward, so we hope you can continue to join us. And we thank the Sanders for being here, even though they have already run away, screaming into the night. But thank you, everyone in YouTubeville or land or however that works, for being here with us and watching this video. Thank you so much for those of you who have reached out to me recently. It's been wonderful to hear from you. And if you have any thoughts about anything we've said, or if anybody said something that you would like expounded upon or to give a different opinion, please leave it in the comments below. All thoughts are welcome. So if you would like to join us for further conversation, you can at facebook.com/group/Yoke of Messiah. And if you need to reach me directly, you can at yokeofmessiah@gmail.com. Thank you again so much for your time and visiting with us tonight. Blessings on you and yours. Shalom Aleichem.